For Johnny's Car Care and Reviews, and we've got a lot of news to cover tonight. We've got Ford and Dodge. Yes, Ford and Dodge are in trouble. We're going to explain why, and no, it's not because of this, even though the ZR1 Corvette, the new 2025 Corvette, a new model of the Corvette, does blow off the doors off the competition. But that's not why Ford and Dodge are in trouble. Ford and Dodge are in trouble for very different and more troubling reasons than the fact that they don't have, well, Dodge kind of has a competitor to the ZR1 Corvette, but not really. They've got a drag king with the, the red eye and the Hellcat and all that. But that thing is just pretty horrible on a racetrack, whereas this is going to be incredible, a sub 10-second car, and it's going to be incredible on a racetrack. Likely it's going to be almost guaranteed to beat out the Porsche GT2, the Porsche 911 GT3. This thing's going to be beating out pretty much all the supercars. Has 1,063 horsepower. Pure insanity. So if you're in the live show right now, just drop a comment in the live chat. Let us know that you're here. Say hello and good evening. So we're doing this as a nice little pre-show because after we're going to be off at Long MacArthur Ford on YouTube. That's Tim Bart's channel, Long MacArthur Ford. So great to be back on the lives. I've had a very busy time as a new dad. So with Layla and being a new dad, and with a little bit of frustration between myself and YouTube. I've been doing a few less lives, but I'm getting back into it, folks. Let's see how this goes. I do really like doing real world videos, reviews. So on that topic, I have some great news. As long as, no one gets sick and nothing breaks, we're taking out the Ford Bronco Wild Track to go meet up with Pat from Outsider Reviews. And he's got the Bronco Raptor. We want to do a little double review, compare the two models, and take both off-roading and get some great video footage and a great review of the Ford Bronco. So that's thanks to our good friend Pat. So Patrick, check out his channel, Pat at Outsider Reviews. He's helping us out. We're helping him out. So give him a big thumbs up. Check out his channel. Let his channel play in the background. Good evening, Wayne. Thank you very much for making it to the live. So let's just jump right in. Let's put the pedal to the metal because, of course, we want to be on time for Tim Bart's show over at Long MacArthur Ford at 8 p.m. Well, we'll see many of you. So big news. Let's just jump right in. Should we start with the Corvette or should we start with Ford and Dodge being in big trouble? Let's start with the new revealing news. Let's start with something that I'm really excited about. Let's talk about the Corvette. Then we'll get to talking about how, yes, Ford is in trouble. Ford is going to owe billions, I think billions of dollars. And then we're going to be talking about how Dodge is in trouble. Essentially, Dodge is going to be needing to cut models. What models will they cut out of their lineup? We don't know yet. Nothing's official, but we do know that they're going to be cutting models. So pretty serious financial troubles over at Dodge when you've got to start cutting models. Not a good sign. Ford's kind of all over the place, cutting models, now going back to adding in models, small vehicles. They're going to have a recall that's going to cost a fortune, and I'm here to help you navigate through that recall. If you have the model that it is affected, you're going to be getting your vehicle bought out. So let's just jump right in. Episode 1 here. So just going to take a little time mark because I want to separate this for everyone later on so we can have mini episodes of all this. Let us know as you drop into the live. Say hello. Let us know that you're there, and please drop your comments. We're all at Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. We're a channel that's all about car community and learning from one another. No one can ever have all the answers, and no one can get it right 100% of the time. So we can always help each other out with fact checking and bringing new information and experiences to the show. So very much community dependent channel. Let us know. Before we get started, please help this small family business out with a nice little like and a subscribe. It would really help out the channel. So let's get started. Let's talk about this new Corvette, folks. Rich GT350R. Thank you very much for dropping in. Yes, we're going to be talking about a recall that I think is going to cost $4 billion. Nothing's been revealed for pricing, but we'll get to that right after. So the new ZR1 Corvette. This thing is absolutely incredible. It's not just, well, I think it's a very good looking car. We have one on the street. I haven't bought bought one. I checked out a GM dealership, and it was back when they were asking, you know, 50,000 over for used ones. And I was like, I'm not buying a 2-year-old used Corvette, a straight model, for an extra 50,000. Now, I did predict prices would come down considerably. They have. You can now get a 2-year-old model for the same price or slightly less than what it cost new 2 years ago. So still a little wonky out there, but that's going to change. That's going to go down. And the new ZR1, though, is going to bring back excitement to the model. And if they build enough of these, you're going to get enough trade-ins to sort of help not flood the market, but fulfill the market demand, so there won't be such high demand versus supply. Now, this model is going to be in very low supply and probably quite high demand depending on the price that they put on it. But this thing is incredible. We don't see it that well due to we've got an incredible air intake on the hood. It's actually an air flow through, and it helps with downforce. So air comes in through the front bumper, flows through and ends up on top of the hood, over the windshield, then back towards the wing to create more downforce. This has 1,200 pounds of downforce. So the ZR1 Corvette isn't your regular Corvette, and not just because of horsepower. So I'm not sure if all of you have heard, but this thing is insane. It's blowing the doors off in the entire competition, not just Ford. It's blowing off the doors off McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, Porsche, everyone. Well, Porsches notoriously have incredible handling and less horsepower than other supercars, or even when they build an exotic. It's right up there. 1,064 horsepower and up to 828 pound-feet of torque. And this machine at 4,000 and 4,500 RPM is going to make the horsepower at only 4,000 and 4,500 RPM. It's going to make the previous power of previous generation Z06 ZR1s, so previous generation ZR1s from the generation before and the generation prior. So it's an incredible amount of power, and it's throughout the entire the RPM range, because this thing has twin turbos. So it's going to lay onto that power. You're going to have around 600-700 horsepower between 4,000 and 4,500. So you're going to have right under 600 horsepower at 4,000 RPM. By the time you get up to 4,500 RPM, you're going to have right around 700 horsepower. And then after 4,500 RPM, you eventually get up to the peak 1,664 horsepower. But another reason this thing is going to be incredible is that's going to be running on pump gas, not race gas. You're going to get insane power off pump gas. Absolutely incredible. You can see the air flow through better. So air comes to the front bumper, and instead of just creating drag, it's going through, coming out the top here to help create downforce. You have 1,200 pound-feet of downforce going over the back and sending that air to the rear wing, where it can help create downforce. Now, this is definitely not a winner in regards to downforce. This is the 1,200 pounds of downforce isn't nothing. It's the most downforce a Corvette has ever produced. So this is huge for an American big production, high volume company. You know, we're not talking about Ferrari that are only making specialty cars for a few $1 million, or, you know, slightly under $1 million. We're talking about GM here. They've never had 1,200 pound-feet of torque. But if you look over at McLaren, you look over at, you know, the Porsche 911 GT3, or you look at the Dodge Viper. The Dodge Viper is sort of the king of production vehicles when it comes to downforce at, I believe it's 1,900 pound-feet of downforce. Porsche's around 1,700 pound-feet of downforce. 1,200 pound-feet of downforce. So clearly, it's a crappy vehicle. No. Just because it creates only 1,200 pound-feet of downforce, that's an incredible amount just the same. Just because you don't win in one aspect doesn't mean the car, throw it out the window, it's not any good. And just because you win in one aspect, you know, previously you think of the Dodge Hellcat, the Red Eye, all these Dodge Challenger and Charger models that keep getting more and more horsepower so they can be the king of the horsepower mountain. Just because you're great in one aspect doesn't necessarily all of a sudden mean that you've got an amazing vehicle on your hands. Dodge hasn't produced a vehicle that is going to be fun to drive on the track. You kind of, you know, the C8s are monsters. This is the king of the monsters, blowing the doors off the competition. And one major problem I often have with vehicles with an incredible amount of downforce in these supercars or exotics, it goes back to the 90s. Think of the 1980s and 90s Lamborghinis, the Countach. You couldn't see out the back window. By the way, this has a split back window, and that hasn't been done since, not the one in the picture here because this is the convertible, but the split rear window is on the hardtop, and that hasn't been done since 1963 over at Corvette. And those often will be worth 2, 3, or even 4 times more than another Corvette from the 1960s that does not have the split window. But going back to that Lamborghini, you couldn't see out the back window. It was horrific on bumps. I've spoken with individuals that I know, acquaintances who have Ferraris, and you know, they'll go down to their ocean summer front homes or on vacation wherever, and they'll say, you know what, it was a mistake taking the Ferrari. And they often, I've heard it so many times, should have taken the F-150. It would have been more comfortable. It would have been more enjoyable. They didn't necessarily enjoy driving all over the place and hitting potholes and speed bumps. GM is promising that this isn't going to be much, the comfort level is going to be similar to your C8. So they're not going to go down the road they did with their high-end Camaro, where the high-end Camaro was essentially more or less so rough that it was kind of undrivable on, you know, normal roads, and you kind of needed those perfect roads or the racetrack. This isn't going to be a racetrack only vehicle the way so many of these supercars are. This is being promised to be a vehicle that will still be just as daily as your regular C8. Now, C8 owners, when you're watching this, drop a comment. Is your C8 daily drivable? Because for C8 owners that I know, I've got some that say, yeah, it's totally a daily driver. And I've got others that say, you know what, I'm going to trade it in and buy a Mustang because I want to have that road comfort. So you can see those are your standard wheels. You have a carbon package that gives you a carbon fiber rear wing, carbon fiber wheels. So I wouldn't spend any extra money, and who knows, maybe I'd never even buy this car, because if it's over 200,000, this likely, I'm hoping this is going to come in under 200,000 US dollars. Has something a little special compared to the other C8s. You actually have at the end of the line here, you have a real air intake, and you've got the air intake down here. So dual function between these two air intakes. It's for cooling off the brakes, and it's also for getting cool air and to cool off those turbos. So you've got air going to the engine bay, air going to the wheels. Fantastic design. Now, one problem I do have with the C8s, had one parked on the street just this week, stared at it, you know, paused the family walk to stare at the vehicle for about 5 minutes. Didn't touch, I'm not impolite. And it didn't burn through the paint by staring at it. But individually, this vehicle has, every part of it is beautiful. You look at just the front, it's incredibly beautiful. Just the side, from, you know, right on to the side, incredibly beautiful. Just the rear, incredibly beautiful. But if you look at it, you look at the nose of the vehicle at about a 45 degree to the side angle. So let's say the vehicle's here and you're, you know, up here. The problem is the back end, and some people will love this, some people won't, but it kind of looks like a very wide posterior, a very big booty. But from the side, perfection. From the front, perfection. Well, I shouldn't say perfection. I think styling wise, this still doesn't beat the most beautiful vehicle ever made, which is the Ferrari 458 Italia. That is the most beautiful vehicle ever made. But this I find looks kind of like a mix between the 458 Italia and your typical over-the-top, over-cut up Lamborghini. You know, please don't shoot me for those comments. That's my opinion. I find Lamborghinis are a little too over the top. They're too cut up. They're too triangular. Their edges are too sharp. The 458 Italia is perfection when it comes to styling. So you see better on this yellow one, the pass through air section. So air comes in through the front, It actually will go over the hood, and that's going to actually help with downforce in the front, and it's also going to help to have less aerodynamic drag. So this is an incredible vehicle when it comes to its design, because every team worked together on this vehicle. So hopefully the budget team as well. Hopefully this doesn't end up going for about $400,000 or $500,000 US. I'm thinking it's GM. I'm thinking Ford's going to do everyone a favor, and even though this is going to be a exotic car or supercar slayer that's going to be beating out the McLaren, that's going to be beating out the Porsche 911 GT2, GT3, it's going to be beating anything that Ford and Dodge are making. And please, Ford, we all know these vehicles aren't high profit vehicles. Even possibly, maybe, I don't know if the Corvette actually loses a bit of money for GM based on what they invest versus what they sell, but it brings people to GM. They're icons. They're people, they're vehicles that people talk about at work, at the, the coffee machine, the water cooler. So it brings people to the brand, often, buying that family SUV because that's what they can afford. But if your kid's got a poster of this on his wall, you want to be the cool dad or the cool mom, you might end up buying a GM. Said it certainly happens. So here's what I was talking about. From the side, look at that. Beautiful, and looking a lot like the 458 Italia. But if you take it from, if you're standing over here looking at, well, let's say you're standing down here looking down towards the vehicle at about a 45 degree, you really see that the back end is pretty wide. Some people like the wide back ends. I've got my limits to how much wide back end I can handle. You can see you've got the carbon fiber wheels here. You've got the standard wheels. I actually prefer the standard wheels. I definitely would not be paying a surplus for the carbon fiber wheels. The interior, it's similar to a lot of the C8s, which are actually very good. Corvette went from having a pretty shoddy interior to having a very, very nice interior. Really, hats off to you, GM. You turned it around. You went from a horrible interior to an incredible, incredible interior, especially not even just price considering, just point final. No matter what the price is on this vehicle, or no matter even if C8s cost twice as much as they did, the interior would still fit. Whereas prior, it felt like you're looking at a Cobalt SS, but in reality, or a Dodge Neon, but it was your Corvette from the 90s and 2000s. Now the seats here, you can see they're mixing leather. We'll get into that because Ford does a really good job. Chevrolet does a really good job here on the website telling us all about this. You can check this out going to the Chevrolet.com website. But the engine is a 5.5 liter engine, 1,064 horsepower, provided by 2 turbos. All the other supercars on the market right now pretty much are doing this hybridized. Their total power is due to an engine plus a hybrid unit, so an electric motor. Here it's all natural, well, it's not naturally aspirated, but it's all gas, no electric. So really impressive interior here, beautiful stitching. And we can see in one of the photos, it looks like, I'm wondering if this is going to have an 18 PSI peak, because one of the photos show 18 PSI here where it says turbo boost. Hopefully we'll get to that photo as well. You've got 8,000 RPM as the start of the red line, taping off and cutting you off at 9,000 RPM, just like the Ford Shelby engine, the 5.2 liter, whether it's in the GT350 or supercharged in, and yes, this has a considerable amount more power than the GT500 with its 5.2 liter supercharged engine, but it has something in common. Ford came out and brought us the flat plane crank engine. Now the Corvette is running off a flat plane crank engine. Let's hope that, I'm hoping at some point, please, can Ford be inspired to, build something that competes with this and doesn't cost, not cost, 500,000 US dollars or 800,000 Canadian dollars. The Ford GT is what I'm talking about. So beautiful car. Let us know in the comments. What do you think of the styling of this vehicle? What do you think the pricing is going to be at? My guess is just under $200,000. I believe the Z06 right now is about 115,000 US dollars. It's going to be over the top styling for some, and it's going to be just right for many, but few of us will be able to afford this. Hopefully GM still makes this somewhat affordable and keeps it under 200,000. There's your split window in the back. Now I'm going to be wanting to actually, for whatever reason, YouTube isn't giving me any of the live chat, so I'm going to be switching up, putting my phone off to the side. Oh, now it's popped up. So yeah, $200,000 comment was made in the live chat. So please check out the live chat as you're watching this. Good comment was made that if GM comes out at $200,000, this is going to be snapped up because it's a bargain. It's not 500,000 US dollars and playing around that ballpark like so many of the supercars that this is going to blow the doors off of, folks. There's your big freaking wing package. So Douglas Blair making some really good points and also about the vehicle. So I'll get you a nice little glimpse of that split window design, those carbon fiber wheels. You also have, down here, carbon fiber ducts for helping with downforce, and you can see them up in the front right here as well. I like supercars. I'm going to be looking at what I call a super SUV, supercar, super SUV, the Bronco Raptor this Saturday. So keep an eye on the channel. Hit the bell subscribe, turn the bell notifications on because we're going to be off-roading with the aid of Pat from Outsider Reviews. We are going to be comparing my Wild Track with that Bronco Raptor, helping people decide, do you wait? Do you try to find a Bronco Raptor or do you go with a Wild Track? What's right for you? Corvette, I think, has done an incredible job. A really nice shot of the air pass through. Sorry about the noise. I'm turning on the phone so I can actually see the live chat. And it looks like it is going to be making a good amount of noise. Sorry about that, folks. So there's your air pass through. Air comes through to the front bumper and then passes over the hood. Helps out quite a bit with downforce. Carbon fiber, when you take the carbon fiber package, if you can ever get your hands on this, carbon fiber wheels and then all the ducts, bottom, top, all that is going to be carbon fiber. Nice headlights. I like the styling. I want to know what you think. What's the community saying on this? I personally, I love that GM came out with, absolutely love that GM came out with a mid-engine. So in case anyone didn't know, this is a mid-engine. What's really amazing, the back window, you're looking right at the engine. Has supercar written all over this thing. So now let's just click out here. Check out what GM has to show on us to let us know. They're letting us know the facts here. The specs, 5.5 liter dual overhead cam, V8 engine, twin turbo with flat plane crankshaft, 8,000 RPM is the beginning of your red line, 8-speed dual clutch transmission, no manual. This thing is going to, and yeah, the manual is a whole lot more fun, but I think GM wanted to, cut options, save money, not care so much about the joy of driving, because I think a manual is an incredible amount of fun. Of course, if you got your shifts wrong, this thing would spin out of control unless you have a really great traction control system that really dumbs down the power if you shift incorrectly, downshift and kicking into a too high RPM. But the 10-speed dual clutch transmission is going to be unbelievably fast. Faster than any human. Porsche's gone. The Porsche 911 for 2025 has dropped their manual. Previously, their automatic, 0.5 seconds to 60 miles per hour faster when you took the automatic instead of the manual. The days of manuals being faster and more fuel efficient, they're done. Those were, prior 2010 and prior, in the 90s, of course, you got your manual for fuel economy. You got your manual for a faster shifting transmission because automatics were deathly slow. So we can see we got our turbos down here, and it's kind of weird to think of a Corvette that's not either naturally aspirated or supercharged. So let us know what you think about a Corvette that is on turboed. So the chief engineer, Dustin Gardner, quoted as saying it's constant torque throughout that RPM range, I can tell you that we've got the Shelby GT350, and a flat plane crankshaft makes an incredible sound. Mind you, my brother's 5-liter V8. He did what I've done on many of my Mustangs, and I've tried X-pipe and H-pipe. He put an H-pipe, and I was driving behind him in the Porsche 911 and so ashamed of the sound coming out of my Porsche 911, but unbelievably impressed by the Coyote 5-liter Ford Mustang V8 with an H-pipe. It sounds almost as good as my Shelby GT350. Incredible sound as it drove by. This hopefully will have more sound than the C8s that I've driven behind. You know, your standard C8 that has under 500 horsepower. Doesn't have the loudest exhaust. Of course, things can always be modified. You'll think back to the Coyote engine 2017 and prior. Those engines from factory were dead quiet. Now with the active exhaust, you can get an amazing sound coming from that exhaust, or skip the $1,000 option and just put on an H-pipe. So if ever, and I'm sure the sound off this Z06 is going to be incredible. I actually did listen to a sound clip and I found it maybe is missing a little bit of aggressivity, but that will be easily modifiable and tunable. So there's your engine. What a beauty it is. I love that they've got the painted top on it. There's your PSI at 18, but it was out of 25. So it was 25 PSI going to be, you see it right there, is 25 PSI going to be the max? Probably, but when they're testing it and they took the photo, it was at 18 PSI. There it is again, 25 as the max. So hopefully that's where the max is at. You know there's going to be people, what's going to be wild is, you know, there's going to be people getting an extra 200, 300, 400 horsepower out of this with modification. You've got your side inlets there, large side air inlets, feature signature carbon fiber wishbone bezels. This paired with the new rear brake cooling ducts allow for additional engine cooling while maximizing air intake. So a nice little fact there from GM, quoting what they've written down. Flow through hood and ground effects. I think we've talked a lot about that, and there's going to be an available ZR1 carbon fiber aero package. So to correct, you've got carbon fiber here, but if you want more carbon fiber on the vehicle, you're going to be paying for it with that very much GT2, GT3 racing wing. So here David Caples, the aerodynamicist, saying the ZR1 is the ultimate expression of aerodynamics, of horsepower, of exoticness, of styling. Yes, on every point. Still find the 458 Italia is beating this out on style. Of course, you know, that's, you'd be buying that as a used vehicle. And the new Ferraris, I find, have never hit that perfect sweet spot of design that the 458 Italia has. So a nice little spot on that rear split window. I definitely do like the design of this. And here's that almost, not quite 45 degree on the side. You can see the back end does look pretty thick. Pretty thick back end. You got your split window that hadn't been done since 1963. That's going to be great for resale. That's going to be the most collectible Corvette from the last 30 years. So that's the model you're going to want to get. Do not get the convertible on this model. Get the hardtop. So you've got that split, well, T-top, I guess, as they always are, on the C8, but get that split rear window. Covered underbody on this, so smooth underbody minimizes drag and reduces turbulence underneath ZR1 and also helps to engage downforce. That's good because this is going to have Corvette's, Chevrolet's highest top speed ever produced. There's your interior. I enjoy the flat steering wheels. I've got no problem with that whatsoever. You got the CMF designer, talking about Napa leather on the interior, heavier stitches, and honed in accent styling. If you want to check this out, you can compare if you're more 1LZ or 3LZ. So who's going to get one of these? What kind of price is it going to be? And will Ford and Dodge ever answer the call and create a Corvette competitor? They've been avoiding this for far too long, and that's unfortunate. And that's not why Ford and Dodge are in a lot of trouble. So let's get to that. That's going to be the next 2 episodes of this live, and we've got 30 minutes left of this live. Then we're heading over to Long MacArthur Ford. So that's Tim Bart's. Love the guy over there. Really enjoyed meeting him in person, and you know, we've chatted many times in the past. But it's going to be really nice meeting. It was really nice meeting him and Sarah, and it's going to be really nice meeting them again. So hopefully, the next time they're up in our neck of the woods, we'll get to sit down with them. So sorry, a little bit of gotta adjust my chair here. Get into the next episode. So yeah, Dodge and Ford are not in trouble because of this vehicle. But this is a great spotlight product. This is the type of product that puts a spotlight on your company. When your kid, son or daughter, has a poster of a Corvette ZR1 up in their room, you're going to be more motivated to go shop and get your family SUV or your family truck at the company that your kid is, you know, just not worshiping, but, you know, drooling over in his room. Really think Ford should pony up, spend the money. And of course, Ford does have they do have the GTD, but the Mustang GTD and the Dark Horse, it's just not the same. There's something special about a mid-engine 2-door. I know I've spent the last, you know, I don't know how many years wasting all sorts of money on my Toyota MR2 just because there's something special about having a mid-engine 2-door vehicle. So let's get into this. Let's talk about how Ford's in trouble. Ford is in trouble, and it's concerning. And it's concerning for many reasons, but let's start with the one that's going to cost the most. So let's get a nice little Ford picture going up here. So Ford, let's start it right up. Episode 2. Ford is in big trouble, folks, and it's not just because of this flip-flop back and forth between we're not making cars anymore and because they were losing money making cars, or breaking even when they were lucky. When things went really, really well, they would break even selling these small vehicles. And they're not in trouble, major trouble. The main focal point of this episode isn't about how Ford's in trouble because, well, their electric plans aren't going as well planned. They're pushing back the Ford Explorer. They have pushed back Gen 2 of the Lightning, which is going to probably be a very drastic new styling. I really think the Pikes Peak, if you look up, do a Google search, Ford Lightning Pikes Peak, great news. They won Pikes Peak, and that's a very technical, difficult race to win. And they won. Great, fantastic news. But the Lightning that they put in for that competition brought new battery charging, likely smaller battery, likely the type of battery that charges faster but is smaller. So not necessarily more autonomy, but less trouble when you do go to plug it. If you're on a long road trip, probably I think Gen 2 is going to have batteries that you plug in and you get the missing charge that you need very quickly, but the battery is smaller. But the styling was pretty wild. I'm not sure how many they'll sell with that styling. Some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it, but that's not the main reason why Ford's in trouble. Ford's in trouble, I think, not just because they've lost billions the last few years selling electric vehicles. They're in trouble because, well, their gasoline vehicles need to make money, and they need to stop losing so much money with electric vehicles. So I've got something that's going to help you all out here. If you own a Ford Fusion, this is why Ford is in trouble. Ford is going to be taking off a lot of Ford Fusions off the road because they're plug-ins. So back to the whole electric story, costing Ford money. This could cost Ford a couple $2 billion. It depends how many they have to pull off the road. But if you currently own a Fusion, check your mailbox, check your email. You might be getting a letter that says that Ford's going to buy back your vehicle. And this is good and bad. This is really good because Ford is doing the right thing. Instead of continuing to look for a solution or doing a cheap fix for your plug-in Fusion that just won't charge anymore, they're actually going to buy back your vehicle. So I always say that the right way to do business, if you can't find a fix within a reasonable amount of time, is, you know, if it's an engine like the Toyota Tundra with their hybrid engine pulling 102,000 engines out, and they're going to completely change the engine. So Toyota is also in big trouble. That's going to cost them billions as well, because at about $20,000 per engine, job, parts, and labor, they're looking at about 25,000 Canadians. Let's say about roughly 20,000 US dollars, or just under. Toyota is going to be switching out 102,000 motors. That's going to cost them a couple billion dollars. Now, if Ford pulls 100,000 Fusion plugins off the road worldwide, let's say what they're going to be doing is they pull it off the road and they're going to be buying the vehicle at fair market value. So what customers are getting as a letter, and this is Bulletin 23S33, it's a safety recall bulletin, because these customers could no longer charge the vehicle. And even if they could charge their plug-in Fusion, Ford is sending them a letter saying, please don't charge your plug-in Fusion, because they're worried about problems. So Ford is offering an alternate remedy. So for the last roughly year, they've been trying to find a solution, something that they could spend money on and just fix individuals' current vehicles, and they just couldn't find one in a reasonable amount of time. So Ford is offering customers a vehicle buyback option, meaning they will offer to buy back your vehicle at market value plus a 15% premium. So what does this mean? Let me kind of do the math and spell this out for you. It means, let's say your Fusion is, on average, people are asking between $16,000 and $20,000 for the vehicle. Let's face it, the people who are asking $20,000 for the same mileage and equipment as yours, if your price range is $16,000 to $20,000, would you call the person asking $20,000? No, of course, you're gonna call the people who are asking $16,000 and verify and find the good one within that price range. And then you might even try to get it for a little bit less. So if you're to sell your own Fusion, if the price range is $16,000 to $20,000, and you actually want to sell it instead of just have it collect dust and be a museum piece, whether you're a dealer or an individual, you're going to ask $16,000, and you're going to sell it for $16,000 or a little less, because you already have the best price on the internet. If you're in a rush to sell, you probably take those original offers of people just offering you $1,000 or $2,000 less. So bad scenario, you sell at 14. Good scenario, you sell it at 16. Miracle case, you sell it at, let's say, 17. So the price range for asking is 16 to 20. Well, fair market value would be roughly about somewhere in the middle. So about $18,000. But then Ford's going to add a 15% premium. So they're paying pretty high for your, not discomfort, but for your trouble. I think this is unbelievably fair, because the type of vehicle that a dealership will sell, let's say at $16,000, they need to pay that about $12,000. So yeah, about a $4,000 spread. Why? Because, well, every month they have it for sale, they're going to pay $7,000 in 7%, per year. Over the course of a year, they pay 7% interest. So their interest rate on their inventory is 7%. So that's part of the reason why they can't pay you the full price they're going to sell it for. Then they've got marketing, repairs, maintenance, washing, warranty, and then paying the taxes, the electricity, and all that. So they can't run a business offering you 15 to advertise at 16 to then sell it at 15,500 if they sell it quickly. Because remember, a used lot, if you sell a vehicle 6 months later, that vehicle you thought you would hopefully maybe sell for 15,500, 16,000. 6 months later, you might be selling it for 14, and you might have put $2,000 into it. Or when you have newer vehicles, well, they depreciate even faster, so it's even more of an issue. So Ford's going to be paying these vehicles. People who have Fusions are going to be making thousands of dollars more than if they would have sold it themselves, and several $1,000s more than if they would have traded it in. So this is great. Ford isn't just offering to pay back trade-in value on these vehicles plus a few dollars. No, fair market value plus a 15% premium. So there's going to be Fusion owners, check your mail, your emails, check your physical mail. They're going to have a phone number to call. Now, we've tried it out. We've called that number. They're not quite ready to start, writing the checks and putting out the offers. They're getting this set up because this just came out recently. But soon they'll be ready to sign you a check. They'll tell you to go down to your dealer where you're going to be, bringing back this vehicle and walking away with your check. Hopefully, maybe, you know, an option could be to trade it in, take your check and either put it in your bank account or apply it maybe to a new Escape plugin, because Escape plugins have been really good. And I've sold a lot of those Escape plugins, and I'm not getting any complaints from people who have bought them. So the Escape plugin has been a very enjoyable vehicle when it comes to space, comfort, sound deadening, the handling, the drive, the acceleration. I think the Escape plugin is a fantastic option, and it'd be great. You know, you're going to go from a Fusion plugin, which unfortunately had very, very little trunk space. I don't want to say no trunk space, but not a family-oriented trunk space. You can fit a few grocery bags in it, but not much more. Plug-in, and then you go to your plug-in Escape. That's got a ton of space, and you'll have a whole lot of cash for that. So not all bad. However, Ford's in trouble, because if you think about it, if you've got 100,000 vehicles, let's say rough, that they have to buy back, and let's say they buy them back at an average of $16,000 US, and it could be, you know, maybe it's going to be 20, maybe it's going to be 14, but it means Ford's going to be pumping out somewhere in the realm of $2.56 billion. I wonder if this is why Ford stock went down. Actually, the day this recall came out, I think that's pretty much since then, Ford stock's gone down about 20%. And it makes sense, because this is going to cost a lot of money. Now, Ford's also, I'd say, kind of in trouble, because it doesn't look good when you can't make up your mind. Ford just recently cut out the Ford Fiesta and Ford Focus. Ford just recently announced that they're going to slow down on the EV push. So the Ford Explorer, which was supposed to start getting produced at the Oakville plant, no go now. At first, they pushed it back by a couple of years and pushed back the Ford Lightning production of the Gen 2 Ford Lightning, which they might even change the name of, by 1 year. But now the Ford Oakville plant is going to be making Ford Super Duties. Good on you, Ford. I think that's a great decision. You actually make money selling Super Duties. You make a lot of have your very happy customers selling that all-powerful Super Duty with its 1,056 pound-feet of torque, or go up to 1,200 pound-feet of torque if you get the little red 6.7 liter, the high output. But you're going to be building Super Duties, and that's a pivot, a major pivot. And now what? We're pivoting back. I don't think it's a good look when you're pivoting back to small vehicles. And maybe let me know in the comments. Maybe this doesn't matter to any of you. Maybe it's only for obsessed insiders like myself that don't like change very much, when the change seems to be going in one direction really quickly, 100 miles per hour, and then just switching right back. Because here we have quite rumors of quite likely, great article by Brett Foote on July 29th. The 2026 Ford Fiesta EV is rumored to launch riding on a new platform. And Jim, the CEO of Ford, whose name is Jim Farley, really, I respect what he's done with Ford. I respect the models that have come out under him. You know, you think under Jim Farley, you've got the Bronco, you've got the Mach-E, you've got the Lightning. Only thing that bugs me with the Mach-E, like so many people, is that they put the name Mustang on it. Get that name off of it. But it does bring people in the showroom. They're like, oh yeah, Mustangs have always been great, so this must be great too. So, okay, a little bit. I see what's going on, but it was said we weren't doing small vehicles anymore. And now we're talking, and then Jim Farley, CEO, was talking about bringing back small vehicles, but in a different way. Previously, Ford either broke even or lost money when it came to the Fiesta and Ford Focus. And they lost even more money because of the automatic transmission that was in the Ford Focus. So there's a lot of reasons to want to cut out and just, you know, have people kind of forget about the Ford Focus over here. In Europe, it wasn't a problem because people have different drive expectations from an automatic, because essentially the Ford Focus's automatic transmission behaved like a manual. And out here in North America, so many of us haven't driven a manual either ever or in decades. So when the automatic transmission, which is essentially like two manuals bolted together with a clutch controlled by a computer, because it's still a clutched transmission, but it's a computer controlled clutch transmission. Well, it behaved like a manual, and people over on our end of the, they say the other side of the pond. Well, on our side of the pond, people were pretty flabbergasted, frustrated. So it didn't go well. It cost Ford a good amount of money. But now Ford is saying, well, we want to go back to small vehicles, but we don't want them to be money pits. We want to actually be high volume. It's saying that it's needed, and they want it to be profitable. So here we've got a quote here. It says, we are spending a decent amount of time at the corporate level talking about affordability. Jaja said, so Jaja, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, also quoted as saying, we know we need to do it, and it's a muscle we need to build up over time. Yeah, because the muscle in the past, that muscle of affordability on small cars wasn't so great. If you look at our lineup globally, at this point, we don't really have much in the affordable segment. Yeah, completely true. And the key for us is to be affordable, differentiated, and profitable. For too long, we stayed in the affordable segment, either at break even or losing money. And why does Ford need this segment? It's all about staying out of trouble, not being in big trouble, huge trouble. Ford wants to draw in those first time and second time shoppers, people buying either their first vehicle because they're students or early on in their career, or buying the second vehicle when it's time to, have the family vehicle, when you either have, the dog or just the baby, which works with a Fiesta or a Focus. But they can't just have, an expensive Explorer available. And they want people to graduate and move up in Ford. So they want to get those young buyers. So style-wise, I'm all for hot hatchbacks coming back to Ford. And I think maybe this could be Ford's solution for finally meeting that under $30,000 EV vehicle. Small EV, you think a Focus, a Fiesta electric EV could be very much under 30,000 US, and then maybe the Focus EV would be right at the very end, maybe starting price of 29,000 or low 30s. So this will fulfill Ford's promise to bring us, the people, an affordable under 30,000 EV vehicle. Now, speaking of EV vehicles, nice little interesting piece here, not the Corvette, but we did a live and we said that, hey, looks like Ford is going to be coming back to the Capri as an electric vehicle. And yes, you can also check this on Ford Authority by Brett Foote. This was from earlier this month. So right before the 10th, I think it was the 8th or the 9th, I said, hey, the 10th, Ford might be announcing an electric EV. And they did. And the internet, not just the internet, but Polestar, the new guy on the block, started to play the, hey, you copied my design, which is kind of funny because designs are always a bit, they don't come out of nowhere. They don't come out of a vacuum of space. A design is always a bit of everything mixed together to create something new. And that's what this Capri EV from Ford, so far Europe only. I'm sure it'll probably make its way to our end of the woods now that Ford is pretty much announcing that they're going to bring back cars to North America, even though they had said that they're cutting vehicles out of the North American market. But Polestar CEO throws shade at Ford over the on the Capri because of the Capri over design. Essentially, he was kind of saying, hey, you copied our homework, but come on, Polestar. You copied everyone else's homework. Your design didn't come out of a vacuum in space. So I think that is... Oh. I think that is... I got to get this off. I think that's actually a good-looking design. Let us know in the comments section here. They're not popping on the up on the screen. I've had all sorts of trouble with YouTube recently. Not just because basically if you're not one of those trust the science and don't talk about anything else types, I've been threatened to have all my videos taken off YouTube by YouTube. I've got over 1,050 videos on YouTube, and they said, well, if you talk about these subjects, war or, vaccines, you get your videos deleted. So I thought that was awfully interesting. Now they're not offering the live chat on the side. So I'm sorry. I see there's so much commentary going on the side, and I'm Missing all. Wayne, yes, dealer adjustment is disgusting. We don't have that left in Canada anymore because we've got a lot of volume. And I think in the States, once you have a lot of volume and you kind of burn through all those stubborn dealers and, you know, they're not sales consultants, dirty salespeople, definitely not sales consultants. Once you burn through them and you give them a few months of them not selling much, they'll bring their prices down. So to my American brothers and sisters, hold off. Don't buy with market adjustment. Even if it's $2,000, don't buy with market adjustment. Unless the vehicle is unbelievably rare, like the Corvette ZR1 will be, it's not worth spending a markup because those markups will disappear if you can get your dealers to feel a little desperation. Make them sweat it, you know, get them to sweat it out. So yeah, Douglas Blair. Yeah, you had a Capri in the 1970s. Very cool. So thank you for dropping the comments. So Ford's in trouble. No, I don't think they're going to be in trouble for this design. I don't think a lawsuit would be successful if Polestar decides to sue Ford over this design. I don't think they're going to get anywhere because, you know, it's different. Yeah, okay, it's the same basic shape as a Polestar, but then all the other little design cues are different. And imagine if, you know, imagine if they allowed lawsuits like that to win. So, okay, if Ford created the van first, does that mean Ford gets to sue everyone for having something that has a sliding door and generally the same basic shape? No, that's just silly. CEO of Polestar needs to cool his horses. So there's a side view of the vehicle. It's weird. It's kind of like a big, bulky car, and I kind of like the style. I oddly like the style, even though it is, yes, looking like a big, beefy vehicle. It kind of looks like an SUV car, I guess. So there's your Polestar 2, looking a lot less beefy, but okay. So yes, I can definitely see the similarities in this region. I can definitely see the differences. This doesn't look nearly as bulky. The lights are different. The side, got the side line here. Let's see up top. Oh, you don't have a major pronounced side line, double side line here. So there's differences. You've got a rounded window. You've got not a rounded window. So that's a loss. I don't even think Polestar had any reason to, other than free advertising, I don't think they had a reason to complain. And that's not a lawsuit that I could ever imagine functioning or going through. Now, let's see. Ford kind of in trouble, small trouble, but kind of a fix, really. It's kind of sad that the Oakville plant in Canada, Oakville, Ontario, was going to be stagnant, not moving, not doing much of anything for 2 years because they're waiting for the Ford Explorer electric SUV to be produced there, because that plan got pushed back, which isn't a great sign. Well, not a great sign. That actually spells something good for Ford. Selling less electric vehicles that you lose money on, because Ford recently, I think Ford's going to lose about $5.5 billion on the electric side of the business this year. In the past, they've lost around $3-4 billion. They're selling more volume this year of Lightnings and Mach-E's, so I think the loss is going to be a little higher. Eventually, when battery prices have come down, though, and as they have more volume, better contracts, I think it is possible to come to a point where they're break even, and even maybe one day, you know, more than 5 years down the road. But I do believe that Ford could be 2 to 4 years away from being break even when it comes to producing these electric vehicles. But right now, on average, well, last year they were losing about $32,000 per US dollars per electric vehicle they sold on average. I think that's probably going to come down. How much they lose per model? But I definitely know volume is going up, so I think they're still going to lose roughly between $4.5 to $5.5 billion. Now, don't take that as sound financial advice. I am not in any way a financial advisor. Far from it. I play very risky, a little high and wild when it comes to when it comes to stocks and bonds and all this. But one stock I really like, it's kind of a bond, it's a stock and a bond, investing in the US government, TMF. So I really like the stock TMF because I have a suspicion that when interest rates, if and when interest rates go down, I think TMF is going to explode. So the stock ticker TMF is one I really like. Now, that finishes up our story when it comes to Ford being in trouble, at least for this week. We'll come back to a live and talk more about what's going on at Ford. Every time we have a live, no more King Ranch on the Ford Explorer. That doesn't spell major trouble for Ford. They just removed the King Ranch from the Explorer lineup for 2025 because, well, it just wasn't that popular. So smart move. Doesn't spell big trouble for Ford when they remove a trim that isn't selling that well, because why have the extra production cost if you're sending them to dealers and they're just kind of collecting dust and taking long periods of time to sell, so that eventually to make room on those dealers so that Ford can send more vehicles to the dealer. If they want to send new vehicles, they got to get rid of the old ones. So vehicles that stay around on the lot, let's say a 2023 Ford F-150, well, yeah, there'll be $11,000 rebate on it right now. Why? And maybe more if they bring back employee pricing, for example, next month. But why maybe more? Well, the longer a vehicle stays on a lot, the more Ford wants to discount it to get it off the lot so they can throw in their new inventory, so they don't have to slow down production on the new vehicles, because deliberately slowing down production has a huge cost associated with it. However, when you cut a whole model out of your lineup, that spells big trouble. And that's where Dodge is right now. Episode 3. Dodge is in some major trouble right now. And unlike the Ford Explorer, which had to cut out one trim, the King Ranch trim, cutting out a trim doesn't spell major trouble for a company. Cutting out entire models, yes, that is not pretty, not good. So you can easily find the story. You just look up Dodge or Stellantis cutting models at Dodge. And it's not just going to be Dodge. They're going to probably cut, Stellantis is a big brand, but they're going to be cutting models. Who knows? Maybe they'll even remove Maserati altogether. But they'll definitely be removing some models over at Maserati, I would think, Fiat. So over on the European side, you're going to have some cuts, maybe not necessarily the whole brand the way GM did or Ford did with, the Mercury, or GM with Pontiac. But Stellantis is in enough trouble with their brands losing money like Dodge that they could definitely cut out entire segments. The Jeep, the whole Jeep brand isn't going to go anywhere, but maybe you'll have a few less. Maybe the Gladiator will get cut, for example. When it comes to Dodge, you're going to have, who knows how long the Hornet will stay around for, the new model, the Hornet. So they're going to be cutting out models that are losing money. So with profits falling, Stellantis cannot afford to have brands that don't make money. So not just models, but brands. Probably models over at Dodge, because there are Dodge as a whole, the truck segment can make, the Ram segment, many years makes money. Some years they lose money. So that's touchy there. Right now, Dodge 1500, Ram 1500s aren't selling that well. They're having to put major discounts on them. With major discounts, they're still not selling that well. So we're going to see a lot come down, some major news in the next 12 months with Stellantis. You're going to see some brands disappear. Will Fiat survive? Will Maserati survive? Time will tell. What will Stellantis cut from the Jeep and Dodge lineup? Well, I definitely think the Gladiator is going to get cut, which isn't a good sign for us Ford Bronco fans, hoping for the Ford Bronco pickup to get built, when Jeep's probably going to be cutting the Gladiator. So if you want to catch this article over at Autoblog, Autoblog, and we can see here, this came out from Reuters, July 25th. And what they were saying is, of the 14 brands over at Stellantis, Maserati, probably looking scary for Maserati. How many models will the whole brand get cut? How many models will get cut? Fiat, will they cut it completely? Will they just cut models? You've got Peugeot, many models could be on the cutting block. Jeep, I don't think they're going to cut the whole brand at Jeep. And here they're talking about like Jeep as one of the brands that could get cut. I doubt that. those Jeep Gladiator, not the Jeep Gladiator, but the Jeep Wranglers sell really, really well. I think Jeep definitely has a future, but I have a strong feeling. You look at the numbers, several models are going to be getting cut over at Jeep. So this is what Carlos Tavares said: if they don't make money, we'll shut them down. So that's Carlos Tavares told reporters after the world's number 4 automaker delivered worse than expected first half results, sending its shares down as much as 10%. He also said we cannot afford to have brands. He didn't say models. That's the scary thing. We cannot afford to have brands that do not make money. That's scary stuff, folks. The automaker now also considers China's Leap motor as its 15th brand after it agreed to a broad cooperation with the group. Stellantis does not release figures for individual brands, except for Maserati, which reported an 82 million euro adjusted operating loss in the first half. So that's why Stellantis is definitely on the chopping block. Dodge, they're not going to cut Dodge, Ram, or Jeep altogether because, well, the high margin Ram pickup trucks and Jeeps that Stellantis sells to US consumers have driven its profits, but the company's weak margin posted on Thursday raises questions over Stellantis' cost efficiency reputation. So I'd say when it comes to my main fear, and not to scare people, but my main fear here when it comes to Jeep, Ram, and Dodge is, where are they going to send production? Are they going to close US production, Canadian production, and try to send that to Mexico or China? I would say that if they've got models that sell well, but they're not making the profit margins they need to be making off of them, that's my main worry. I'd be happy if it was just that they're going to be cutting, 1 or 2 models from Jeep, 1 or 2 models from Dodge, and 1 or 2 models, well, Ram. What can you really cut at Ram? They sell so many of those trucks. So they're obviously not going to stop selling trucks or stop selling Wranglers, but it's all about where will they be made. And as consumers, remember, you can vote with your dollars. If you're not happy about a company sending production to China, don't buy that model. Blast them on Facebook. Blast them on the internet. Say, I don't know about buying, any Dodge, Ram, or any Stellantis product anymore because they've sent production assembly over to China. If you don't agree with jobs leaving here to go over to China to save some money, well, vote with your dollars, folks. And that's the big one I've got for tonight. So Stellantis reported that its adjusted operated income fell 40% to 8.463 billion euros, or 9.17 billion US dollars in the half year to June 30th, below the 8.85 billion euros expected by analysis in a Reuters poll. So they're not making the money they want to be making. I'm worried about brands getting cut for the European brands. 1 or 2 brands probably getting cut. I'm worried about models getting cut for Jeep, not Ram, but Jeep, the Gladiator essentially, and a few Dodge models, some smaller, non-profitable vehicles. But my big fear for the US production vehicles is exactly that, US production. Is it going to stay in the US? I'm worried. So keep an eye on that. Vote with your dollars, folks. And for this evening, thank you for taking your time, because your time is also dollars. When you watch this show, you're voting with your dollars as well. And you're voting to support a small family business. So thank you for watching, because when you watch, when you hit that like button, when you share this on different platforms, either with groups or with people, you're really helping out a small family business. So thank you for helping feed and dress those poodles. Layla's going to get fed and dressed no matter what. I'll do whatever it takes to feed the baby. But thank you for helping to feed and dress those poodles. Thank you so much for watching. We wish you all more cars and more power, and do hope you get to put the pedal to the metal on some fantastic vehicle that makes you smile sometime real soon. Because folks, remember, so life is short. Getting home to your family quickly can be very much about living a better life. And smiles per gallon. It's really important. It's very important. You got to ask yourself, what am I paying for gas? But how many smiles is it providing? And this here, the Corvette ZR1, I'm sure is going to not be great when it comes to fuel economy. unlike so many of the other supercars, which have gone to hybridization, and they have an electric motor to help reach their impressive high numbers of power, or electric vehicles that are really fast and cost, at least in my region, next to nothing in electricity to charge up. I sold the electric truck, and I got a Ford Mustang, a Shelby GT350 in particular, and I can tell you, it's not cheap. And then my Porsche 911, the two old Porsche 911s, require a minimum of 93 octane. Do you know how hard it is in Canada to find 93 octane? I have one gas station, and I don't know how many hundreds of kilometers, that has 94 octane. But the smiles that it puts on my face are worth the payment I put in gallons. So think about those smiles per gallons, folks. And until next time, I wish you all more cars and more power, and I'll see you over at Tim Bartz's show at Long MacArthur Ford. Take care, folks. Have a great week, and bless you all.